Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Executive Encore, the video podcast. The show is designed for women, senior executives, entrepreneurs, and trailblazers who are boldly remastering their life and work after the age of 40, 50, 60, 70, and beyond. I'm Patricia, and today's conversation will empower you to look beneath the surface of your life and work to build the foundation for your Executive Encore, to prevent potential issues and ensuring that you feel successful. So my guest today is Jennifer, who is co-founder and CMO of Beacon Media Plus Marketing. Jennifer is known for her candid insight and unwavering dedication to empowering others to lead with clarity, self-trust, and super strategy. Her entrepreneurial journey is a testament to resilience, marked by many triumphs, bold moves, bold pivots, and a refreshing dose of what she calls radical honesty. She inspires those ready to make meaningful change, not just in business or their careers, but in life itself. So we're going to go deep today. With a fearless entrepreneurial spirit, Jennifer embraces risks, understanding that failure is simply a stepping stone to growth. She is driven by the desire to do impactful work, making a positive impact, and to help others to succeed. Hello, Jennifer. It's great to have you here.
Oh my gosh, I don't know if I can live up to that intro, but
Yes, you certainly can. You certainly can. You've laid the groundwork, which I know is a good testament to your success. So let's begin with a theme that's both personal and universal. The power of self-awareness and radical honesty. You have talked about these qualities that have influenced your growth professionally and personally. How can women at every stage cultivate the courage to look inward, embrace their strengths, and face challenges head on?
It's such a good question. And I'll start with, I think the reason I feel like I am an expert at this now is because I didn't do this earlier in my life, and it led to a lot of failure and a lot of challenges. And so I've seen it from the other side when you don't do it. And that is just not the way to live life. And it's certainly not the way to grow a successful business.
Mm-hmm.
So my greatest advice on this piece of it is that, once you really understand that your business cannot outgrow your own personal development, your own character, who you are as a person, whatever issues that you have concerning money or concerning, self-worth or any of those things, are going to show up in your business decisions, how you price things, how you do all of those things. And I know there's a lot of talk around mindset. But my challenge to that is that if you're just trying to find a quick tool or a fix to change your mindset, but you're not really being truly radically honest with yourself and really understanding what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what are the areas that you don't even know what you don't know. How are you open to hearing from other people who might be ahead of you, who might be have accomplished things that you want to get to? Are you humble enough to listen to those pieces of advice? And are you willing to do the deeper work? It just feels very counterintuitive as an entrepreneur. I understand this because you just want to go, you want to build, you want to grow. Like, those are all wonderful things. But if your foundation is not solid, if you're not, there's many ways you can do this. You can do therapy, you can have faith community, you can have, friends that hold you accountable. You can read books. For me, it's a combination of all of those things. That I can call and say, hey, I think I might be kind of off on this. And they're going to tell me the truth. They're not going to varnish it. So that helps with the blind spots. But the first thing you have to recognize is that all of those things that you're dealing with are going to affect your business. So the sooner you can deal with them or work through them, the better.
I find it so interesting that a few of my guests have mentioned mindsets as being not a quick fix, but something that we think will fix everything, right? And so could you speak a little more about your experience in collecting all the data? And it's not just about the mindset, that you have to develop something from a shift in your mindset.
Yeah, there's head knowledge and there's heart knowledge, right? And so back when I was, in my 20s, when I, was not operating in the same way that I am now, I mean, I listened to a lot of different gurus and things like that, and tried to adopt what they were saying. But the truth is, I didn't believe it for myself, and I had these massive stucks in the way of trauma and some other things that had happened to me that just, no matter how much I would try to tell myself, okay, like this is the mindset or this is what I need to switch into to be successful, I could fake it for a while. And maybe it's different for other people, but I have talked to a lot of people that have said they've gone down this journey, and if they have been able to change their mindset, it's through a lot of work.
Yes.
It's through a lot of deep work, and really they're going on that same journey that I'm talking about, which is going deep with yourself, having people that are very honest in your life, being willing to show up in really hard conversations. Think about if you're somebody who struggles with rejection, and the first time you have a client that, really rejects your work or is not happy with what you're doing, all of those feelings are going to show up in that conversation. Experience that. So, and that same mindset cannot work, or you can't approach it from that way. What I have found more successful, though, for myself is really going more the internal route. So really finding those areas that are keeping me stuck, being very clear with it through people around me. And then really, once you start owning the areas that you're weak or that you struggle with, you can almost laugh at it. You can, sort of get past it. And then it just becomes not as big of a deal. It doesn't have that same trigger that it used to. You can make different and better decisions, or even work towards changing your mindset easier.
Yes, because building that foundation will give you the foundation, the strength to be able to take in that information from a new mindset, like trusting yourself to do that appropriately, right?
Yes.
So that's a great segue into our next talking point, and that's about business in particular, but it can apply to our life as well. And that's the importance of operations and the practical foundations that keep business strong. And not just a pivot, but so that they have sustainability when you implement them. Jennifer, what would you say to women business owners, entrepreneurs, and professionals in our audience about getting a firm grip on the basics of their business and maybe their life? But let's look at business, especially the accounting or like financial, the legal part, and the operations.
I love this subject because this was, always has been my biggest weakness. And for a long time, I thought it was, just me. But what I have noticed is that women in business, you see a lot of women talking about the marketing and like the making things pretty and the brand and all of those. And it's funny because like that is the profession I'm in. Like I do digital marketing.
Yeah, you do that.
Right? But I mean, I have come to very much understand like that is without the other pieces, without like clear systems and operations and really doing the hard work. I know it's not sexy and not fun for a lot of people, but you cannot minimize this. You will never be able to scale your way out. You'll be able to scale your way up in a business if you're just focusing on the sales, the marketing, I mean, I don't want to call it fluff, but it's more that exterior. It's almost like you're so focused on the outside of how your cake looks, you're not paying attention to what your cake actually tastes like on the inside. And so I don't know kind of how we got here as women. I think maybe it just is a little bit the way we're designed to, in general, we're more focused on some of those pieces, but it's, even if you're not comfortable with it or it's not your favorite thing, like it's not my favorite thing to do bookkeeping or to focus on operations. I'm probably not the best at it, but you have to get to the point where you are willing to understand that you have to have an expert in that position. So that's going to be you. You're not willing to learn it. The pain of not doing it is going to be tremendous if you don't focus on it from the very beginning. So
yeah.
I can't say enough about it. I have incredible people in my life, both with Beacon and my husband's business, that's all they focus on, and they love it and they care about it. And I have so much respect for people. That is what they do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I will say one more thing. I'm curious your opinion on this. I think you have to learn it enough to know what to look for.
I was, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want me to speak to that? Because as I was listening to you, you were saying you don't have to be the expert. No, you don't have to be the expert, but you are the person who is ultimately responsible for success or failure. So you cannot take your eyes off certain things.
Yes.
I know some personal stories from business owners, and actually it's interesting because they are in the business of marketing all the great stuff that we all want to do, and but she was not keeping an eye on the numbers, and actually she was not keeping an eye on the custodian of those numbers. And one day she went in and someone had absconded with everything. So it can be that serious, right? And I think it's one of the things that Oprah said many years ago. She still signs all the checks because she needs to know what the financial position is. She may not need to know the analysis of everything, but she needs to know the basics. And I agree with that. So that's my take.
Yeah, and I think that back to what we were talking about with the radical honesty, that because this does seem to be an area that a lot of women, I mean, I've heard story after story after story and have experienced it myself, didn't handle this well. Back to that work that you need to do, what is holding you back from that? What is basically that lie or that mental position that you think that you're not going to be able to understand finances, or that this is going to be too hard, or it's just not your thing. If you're going to go into a business and scale a business, it has to be your thing.
Yeah.
You don't have to do it all the time, right? But you do have to understand it.
Yes, because a lot of people will tell a business owner that if you don't like doing it, give it to someone else to do. Well, that's only half of the story. It doesn't mean that you are not ultimately not responsible for it anymore. You are still responsible to know what's going on. You can't just hand it to someone because you don't like math, or you don't like marketing, or you don't like the operation part. You need to know what's going on in your business.
But and along those same lines, our best clients at Beacon, by far, I mean, there's no question. I can just almost guarantee who's going to be a great long-term partner, and that are people that they don't have to do marketing. They don't have to really be in it a lot, but they do need to understand the basics. Mm-hmm. So because if they don't understand the basics, then they don't even know if we're being successful.
That's right.
Right. And so then the conversation becomes very difficult, because if we're not agreeing on the terms or the KPIs of this measures success, then how do we have a good relationship? Mm-hmm. They might think we're not doing well and we are, or they might think we are doing well and we're not. So again, it's that responsibility piece. Owning a business is a huge responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking of the legal ramifications as well. Like many people say, I'm not the lawyer. I don't want to look after all those legal things. But we see over and over again the consequences of someone not knowing where they stand legally, even as far as, if they need to have an agreement of some sort, and they don't realize how important that is. How they can actually get themselves and their business into a lot of legal problems if they at least don't know or don't participate in those decisions. And I see that quite often. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so let's get beyond the surface, the data, the finances, and structural growth. Many women owners, entrepreneurs, and professionals are brilliant at coming up with fresh ideas. And we've touched on it a little bit, the stunning branding, but they often shy away from focusing on, and you mentioned this, the data that drives the sustainable business. What patterns do you see, other than what you've spoken about before, about patterns in data?
Oh my gosh. So I am one of those, just women that love data. I've been this way since I was 16. I was like on a computer at 16, the only girl in our computer class. The thing I love about data is that it's telling a story. And I think people forget that. They think of it again like that kind of, oh, it's math or it's, complicated or whatever, but really that's what it's doing. It's telling a story. So that's why I love it so much, because it's the real story. It's not the story that people tell you. It's actually what they do. So that's why I love data so much, because in marketing, you can think an idea is great, and ideas in this world that we're in today are many people have ideas. ChatGPT has ideas. Lots of people can throw out ideas. It really comes down to the execution and then being able to see if that idea is sustainable. So what data will tell me is that, I think based on maybe past experience or my, 20 plus years as a marketer, that this type of messaging is going to work really well. Like this is really speaking to the audience that I'm trying to. And data will tell me that didn't work at all and something totally different did. And so that will allow me to really look at, okay, I guess there's a piece of this audience that I don't really understand, and I really look at each piece of data as a person. So it's like that they're telling me the story of what they really care about. So that's one thing. And as entrepreneurs, I know this can be really difficult because we have our ideas of what we think is great. And that's part of what makes us entrepreneurs. We want to build something.
Yeah.
But if what you're building is not aligned with who you're trying to serve, then you're not going to have a successful business. I think it's a dance between, you building something that you're passionate about and that you care about and you believe will do well, but then also listening is a big component. I would say it's even 80-20. 80% should be spent on listening to your clients and listening to what they care about and what's important to them. And then 20% is on you getting to interject your part of it, right? If you want to really grow. The other thing that data tells me, and it's one of my favorite things, I could spend all day on this, but I love looking at like data on websites. So everybody wants, most people want to build this beautiful website and they have all these ideas about it. But when I look at the data, I can see in the back end, well, this person clicked here and this person did this, or this person went to this page and they clicked off and they didn't respond to that page at all, or they didn't find what they were looking for. Again, data is telling you the real story, not what people are telling you. Because people might tell you your website's beautiful and it's wonderful and it's working, and you might feel that way, right? But if you're not getting, over 2% conversions, your website's not working. So that's that's what I love. I love that combination, and I really do see it as me getting to almost like peek behind the hood and really see how people react, what they care about, and what they're doing, not what they say.
Yeah. I love what you said about shifting our attention by looking at that data as a person rather than looking at data. Like that might be what helps many people shift their perspective about data, that this is actually people responding to whatever we're putting out there, and is it doing its work, right?
Right. And there can be many reasons. Like I think what I've seen is, sometimes a business owner will take it really personally. Or let's just be real. Like a lot of what's put out there that we hear about like data stories are actually lies. So like, let's take podcasts, for example, right? Like the top 10% of podcasts have basically like 500 listeners. But you would think, based on like what we hear and like what's put out there, that like the top 10% would have maybe like 10,000.
Yeah.
Right. Because so people are telling stories that really are not true. And so instead of worrying about, maybe it's not what you thought it was going to be, look at the reality, and then you can build something off of that.
Yeah, and look at the impact as well. I agree with you there, because I get asked all the time about viewership and things like that, about how many followers you have. Well, this is a very narrow niche, so I don't expect to have the followers of some of the influencers, right?
Right.
But then there's also the question behind those numbers. Sometimes are just numbers; they're not really showing impact. Because a person can be a subscriber for many years and you may not have any impact on them whatsoever. They just haven't decided to click unsubscribe, right? So like what you say, there's a lot of lies or falsehoods around how you can be successful or what success looks like. It's I know a lot of women that I speak to, it's about their impact. Sometimes it's just the feeling of satisfaction that's the impact for them. It's not necessarily dollars and cents. Like there's some projects that are passion projects for a reason, right?
Right.
And it's still adding value to the audience, but not necessarily bringing in revenues, right? So yeah. Okay, before we close, is there anything else that you want to add that we have not spoken about?
Oh my goodness. I think, I mean, not to harp on it, but I do think the biggest lesson that I've learned, I had a business that I grew pretty big in my 20s, and then it failed. And then, being this round that I'm in now, these last 13 years, the biggest lesson that I've really learned though is that when I'm working on myself, and it can be, reading a great business book, it can be talking to somebody like you, really, like I'm learning something just from this conversation. It can be talking to a therapist. It can be all these things. My business grows in a different way. It's like those are the things that I need to do every day, the things I need to be focused on every day. And it allows me to be in a place to make really good decisions and to be able to handle the enormous responsibility and stresses that come from owning a business. And I wish that we just all were a little bit more honest about that, about that. One, it's incredibly difficult and takes a lot to be this responsible for something.
Yeah.
And many other people's jobs and all of those things. But that there are foundational principles of working on yourself and growing yourself that do make all of that better.
I think that might add more success and resilience to some businesses that are just starting out, is that the owner actually does do that inner work, their own foundational work, like you say. And it's not just by adopting a mindset, but it's actually working on that mindset. I totally agree with you there. And I'm learning things as well. As you're talking, you're making me come up with these insights. So I want to thank you for sharing your insights and your unapologetic wisdom today. Your journey reminds us that leadership in our life, our work, our careers, our business, it isn't just a vision. It's actually a discipline. We need clarity around that discipline as well. And plus the courage to keep growing from the inside, the inner work out, okay, rather than it being out and how we feel about how we're showing up to the world. Is about doing the inner work. To everyone listening, now is your time. So lean into your self-awareness, strengthen your personal and your business foundation if you own a business, and let real data, not just the big ideas, guide your growth. I hope you've been listening to that distinction there. And define what your encore looks like. For many of you, you are moving into another phase of your business, or there could be some senior executives that are working for corporations that are looking into their next move. And think about if a business is part of your, or even a passion project, work on your inner work so that you get more satisfaction and more impact from that. So Jennifer, I want to encourage our listeners to connect with you. So in the show notes, apart from in the ticker as well, in the show notes, we will be putting in your website, your social media platforms. And so everyone who's listening, you'll be able to connect with Jennifer to add value for our listeners today. Jennifer, do you have a specific call to action to motivate someone to connect with you?
I always give a 15-minute free, call of anybody who literally just wants to talk shop. So I have found 15 minutes can be just exactly what somebody needs. And I wish I had that when I had my first business, and even starting this one. Can I just call somebody who might be able to answer this question?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying I will always have the answer, but I've been doing this long enough. I usually will know who does have the answer. if I don't. And I love helping and sharing that way. So I mean this legitimately, like it really makes me happier to be able to do this. So anyone who wants to reach out on LinkedIn, to my LinkedIn profile, and just send me a DM that, hey, I saw you on the show, and would love to take 15 minutes. I will make it happen.
That's great. So for everyone who's watching or listening, if today's episode resonated with you, please share it with a friend, a colleague, or another high-achieving woman who would benefit from the conversation, the points that have come out and the insights that have come out from speaking with Jennifer. It's an important message for remastering life and work and creating the reality that we all desire. This podcast is produced by Maestro Quality, which is a part of the Executive Encore program, and is hosted by myself, Patricia Muir. Please subscribe to the Executive Encore on YouTube and Spotify and wherever you get your podcasts for more insight, conversations, and inspiration on transformation. Please add your comments to the channels to have your voice matter. That's what this channel is all about, is to validate your choices and to give you a voice. So please leave us a review and share this episode with other women in your network. This is a small but mighty network. Again, not huge numbers, but it's mighty. It's a mighty network of women executives and entrepreneurs who need to feel that they're visible, and to others on podcasts and YouTube who could benefit. Subscribe to the Encore newsletter today, and you'll be able to read more about Jennifer. I will be pulling together a blog this week based on the conversation Jennifer and I have just had, and it will be published along with a copy of this video as well in the newsletter this Sunday, July 13th. So please subscribe now so that you can go through the whole process and see how the impact just grows with Jennifer's message. When you subscribe to the newsletter, you'll also receive the VIP access to resources and offers that podcast guests provide on a very private members and subscribers page. So I'll be speaking to Jennifer about maybe something a little additional to the 15 minutes. Maybe Jennifer will be willing to do that. She may have a particular book that she loves, anything like that. So please visit the website, read the blog, weekly blog, and follow me on LinkedIn and subscribe on YouTube. Until next time, remember, this is where your Executive Encore begins. This is where you start to live, work, and lead differently in a healthy mindset of self-trust. Take care of yourself, do what's best for you, and don't jeopardize what you've built for yourself. Have a great day.